I will hurt you for this.
I am the sword in the darkness.
Lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of the sheep.
Let me give you some advice, bastard.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
I'll kill them! I declare war!
You have wounded me, weakened my claim to the throne. Cannot trust you, Daemon. History will paint you a villain, grasping for power.
What is up, everybody? Jeremy Eisenfire here, and welcome to the channel. Season 2 of House of the Dragon is officially here, and with it, a return into the world of Westeros. And today, we'll be taking a look at a preview for the upcoming second episode of Season 2. After the devastating event that Episode 1 ended on, with Blood and Cheese carrying out their nefarious plan, it now looks like Episode 2 is going to be dealing with the fallout of the death of Prince Jaehaerys and the aftermath of Blood and Cheese. The trailer starts off with a voiceover from King Aegon, and here we can see the visceral reaction that he is having to the death of his heir, while stating that he is officially declaring war. And seeing Aegon's reaction is very compelling. You can see the heartbreak and the torment that he is going through as a father. King Aegon, of course, has many undesirable features and still has a lot of growing up to do, but it does seem like he did care about his children and truly did love his son. And judging by the shirt that he is wearing in this scene, it looks like this is also going to be the same scene where he smashes King Viserys' stone model of Old Valyria in a fit of rage after learning about Blood and Cheese. And during the voiceover, we get a few very interesting shots. First, of what looks to be some hounds on the hunt, most likely searching for Blood and Cheese after the event occurs, and what also appears to be the City Watch, or some of his guardsmen, tearing the city apart. And if Fire and Blood is any guide, after Blood and Cheese happens in the book, King Aegon orders the death of every rat catcher in the entire city. At which point, Otto starts filling up the Red Keep with a bunch of cats to handle the rat problem, which is one of the reasons why we see so many cats in the Red Keep during Game of Thrones. But up next, we also get a voiceover from Rhaenyra speaking to what appears to be Daemon, saying that you have wounded me and you have weakened my claim to the throne, and states that she feels she can no longer trust Daemon. Which of course seems to be Rhaenyra's reaction upon hearing about the death of Prince Jaehaerys and Blood and Cheese being set into motion by Daemon. And I did have a feeling Rhaenyra would have a big problem with Blood and Cheese, and especially the way that it went down. In the show, it seems like Rhaenyra certainly wants revenge, but her revenge seems to be solely pointed in the direction of Aemond. I get the feeling that this is something that Rhaenyra would never have okayed herself, which is understandable given the circumstances, especially after just having lost her own son, Luke. One of Rhaenyra's most common attributes is, of course, how much of a fierce mother she is and what she would do to protect her children, so I definitely get the feeling she is going to be very upset at the news of Blood and Cheese. And beyond her personal misgivings, the Blood and Cheese event also has some political ramifications to it as well, as Rhaenyra states that this has weakened her claim to the throne, which in some cases it certainly could have. If Rhaenyra is out there vying for some of the lords who have yet to declare for either side, finding out about such a gruesome event of Blood and Cheese could potentially push some people over to the green side who would have maybe sided with Rhaenyra. But next we get a voiceover of Alicent stating that Rhaenyra's supporters will believe what they wish, as will Aegon's, and how the significance of King Viserys' intentions matter not at this point. Which also sounds like another reaction to the aftermath of Blood and Cheese, with the Greens trying to decide which course of action they will take going forward. And we also get some very interesting dialogue from Aemond in this scene as well, stating that this war will not be won with dragons alone, but dragons flying behind armies of men. And if Episode 1 was any indication, it looks like Aemond and Criston Cole both really want to start taking the fight to the Blacks, and both know that this will ultimately come down to a battle of dragons. And based on Episode 1, it seems like Aemond certainly wants to start going on the offensive. And this rush to action could be attributed just to Aemond's youth and his rashness, or it could potentially be a little bit of hubris on his part, thinking that maybe he is untouchable knowing that he has claimed the oldest and largest dragon in the world. which we saw in Season 1, certainly gave Aemond a confidence that he did not have prior to claiming Vhagar. So it certainly seems like Aemond and Criston both are ready for war at this point. We also hear Criston Cole stating that Harrenhal is the key to the Riverlands, and the Riverlands is the key to the war, which historically is very accurate. If we look back at the history of the many wars that were fought in Westeros, both before and after the Dance of the Dragons, many of these wars ended up being decided at the Riverlands. So it looks like both the Blacks and the Greens are both understanding the importance of getting a foothold in the Riverlands, and of course the best foothold to have is Harrenhal, the largest and most fortified castle in the Riverlands, and just so happens to be a perfect strategic location to set up a command post. And during the voiceover, we get our very first look at the twins on House of the Dragon, and we also get a shot of Daemon and Caraxes landing at Harrenhal. So it looks like in Episode 2, Daemon is finally going to set out from Dragonstone and head to Harrenhal and start bending knees. As next, we get a voiceover from Daemon stating that perhaps the presence of a dragon in these parts will sharpen people's minds. And judging by Daemon still being dressed in his armor in this scene, I get the feeling this is taking place after he has landed and taken the castle of Harrenhal. At the end of Season 1, we find out that Harrenhal is still under the control of House Strong, with Larys being the official lord of Harrenhal after the death of his brother and father. And I'm really looking forward to some of these scenes of Daemon at Harrenhal, and in particular, the introduction of Alys Rivers. Alys Rivers, also known as the Witch Queen of Harrenhal, is a new character in Season 2 and was a wet nurse to both of the Strong children, although it appears that she is no normal wet nurse, as Alys also displays some similar abilities that we see Melisandre use in Game of Thrones, in terms of seeing visions in the fire, seeing visions in pools of water, and also seeing visions in storm clouds as well. So it seems like Alys Rivers' visions are maybe even a little more advanced than Melisandre's. So I'm really looking forward to the introduction of Alys Rivers on the show, and I get the feeling her and Daemon are going to have some very intriguing scenes at Harrenhal in Season 2. But next, we also get some dialogue from Mysaria talking to what appears to be Rhaenyra, stating that there is more than one way to fight a war, followed by a preview of the riot that breaks out inside King's Landing. And one thing we know the city is currently dealing with is the blockade set up by the Valyrian fleet, cutting off all trade in and out of King's Landing, creating a dire food shortage within the city, and here it seems like the small folk are beginning to revolt because of it. Followed by some dialogue from King Aegon stating that he will not be seen as weak, with Otto replying that he is already being seen as weak. And here it looks like we are starting to see that rift widen a little bit more between Aegon, Otto, and Alicent, where they are going to start clashing on events and how to handle the war going forward. And judging by the look on Otto's face, it seems like he knows that he is certainly losing the confidence of Aegon, and he is becoming more and more out of his control. But next, one of the final scenes I wanted to touch on in the trailer is some dialogue between Criston Cole and Alicent, stating that what we must do is terrible, which could potentially be referring to the upcoming Cargill Bowl. In the book, after Blood and Cheese occurs, Criston Cole comes up with a plan for Retribution, in which he sends Arik Cargill in disguise to Dragonstone to pose as his brother Eric, in order to infiltrate the castle of Dragonstone, which ultimately leads to a confrontation between the two Kingsguard twins. So ultimately it looks like Episode 2 is mostly going to be dealing with the fallout of Blood and Cheese, and how both Team Black and Team Green respond to the event. And judging by the runtime in Episode 2, which is sitting around 72 minutes in length, it looks like Episode 2 is going to be one of the longest episodes in the upcoming season, so hopefully they can avoid some of the pacing issues that the premiere episode had. But that is going to do it for my breakdown for the Episode 2 trailer, and definitely let me know your thoughts and comments down below. What are you looking forward to seeing most in Episode 2 and in Season 2 as a whole? And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit a like on your way out, and consider subscribing to stay up to date on all of our upcoming content. And don't forget to come join us live every Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our House of the Dragon pregame show. And as always, I want to give a big thank you to everybody out there for watching, and we will see you on the next one.
War is now inevitable.
We must strike while we have the advantage.
There is more than one way to fight a war.
I wish to spill blood. What would you have me do? He's murdered innocent men.